Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. I'm Chris Anthony and this is Streams of Light. I have a big treat for you today. We're going to look at A Course in Miracles. It's a book that was penned in the mid-60s and first published in 1976, but it's been a huge book, a foundational book for spiritual seekers and writers like Wayne Dyer and others. So we're going to take a look at the introduction. One of the statements in the introduction is so powerful that if you took it to heart, it could literally change your life. I know it has mine. So let's get conscious, let's get real. Streams of Light podcast starts right now.
Yeah. Streams of Light podcast. Chris Anthony with you here on a Friday afternoon. Beautiful day in Southern California, broadcasting and podcasting, live streaming from San Juan Capistrano, Revelation Studios. Have a great treat for you today. Today we're going to take a look at Course in Miracles, an introduction. And that starts right now. Hey, I have an exciting guest who I'm going to introduce in just a minute. Don't get all nervous. There's like no one listening on the live stream. Yeah, I've got a friend in studio who's going to, by the way, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Can you hear you?
I can hear myself.
You can? Mm-hmm. Isn't that amazing? That's technology for you. So again, Streams of Light Podcasting, we're live streaming from YouTube Live. So if you're listening on YouTube and you find you like the content, you like the live stream, then make sure you go down and subscribe to it. Also, I'm looking for you on chat. So it'd be nice if you just said hello. And if you really wanted to, if you like the discussion a lot, then we can maybe get you on the live stream. That's a possibility. It's not the strongest possibility, but it's a fairly strong possibility. So anyways, that's the scoop for today. So I wanted to talk briefly about this amazing book. Now, the title is misleading. A Course in Miracles. A lot of people think, well, I want to do miracles. So they go out and they get this book, but it's actually not what you think, which is good. But first of all, I should tell you, this book has been around. It's not quite ancient, but the writing took place in the mid-70s. And the background is, and it eventually got published in book form. It was going around with, printouts and the whole thing. Eventually got published in 1976. But here's the deal. There were two university research, psychology research folks at Columbia University in New York. And they were having a rough time of it. They were both atheists, by the way. This book, the turnoff of this book is it's kind of written, I shouldn't say turnoff, but it could be a turnoff to some. It's written in a tone that is very religious, and it's coming from more of a Western Christianity perspective. Why do I say that could be a turnoff to some? Well, to people who had a bad experience in church life and don't want to have anything to do with that kind of thing, it could be a turnoff to you in that sense. But to the bona fide, hardcore, faithful, quote unquote, Christians, those people wouldn't like it because it would sound too new agey. So I think it would offend both camps, really. But don't let that take you out of the picture here, because this book is downright amazing. So the story goes, Helen and Tim, I believe it is. I was going to pull it up on my laptop or my iPad here, but of course it's out of juice, and I didn't know before I got wired. I'm hardwired to the set here, so I can't move. But these two folks, they're not a couple. One is sort of the boss, and the other one is she's his research assistant. So they're not getting along at all. They're both atheists. They're not spiritual people. They don't really like their relationship anymore. It's a kind of relationship that it's been strained. And so in that straining of the relationship, at one point, the boss, he says to her, he said, there's gotta be another way. And she was kind of like, yeah, I think so. So that was the prep. That's the background of how this book came into being. So again, remember, these people are not people of faith. They're atheists. She goes home from that discussion that she had with her boss, her work partner, and she started having all these interesting experiences, dreams, visions, and worst of all, everyone's worst nightmare. I wish I had a sound effect here I could put. Yeah, I have some sound effects here. Maybe I should try the glockenspiel. What does that mean?
I don't know.
I can't hear it. I think it's there. But anyways, they heard it. We didn't hear it. So she had this terrible dilemma. She heard a voice in her head. And that is, I mean, that's the kind of thing where if you hear a voice speaking in your head, you probably don't want to tell any of your like casual acquaintances, and maybe only your closest loved ones and friends if you think they would handle it well. But she had to go tell her boss, and they work in a psychology department, so in a university. So if I were her, I'd be a little bit afraid to say, hey, I have news for you. I'm hearing voices. But he didn't say, look, we're going to get you committed or on medication or anything. He said, well, if you're hearing a voice and dictation, because she was saying it's kind of like dictation. He said, go home tonight, take down the notes, and then bring him in and we'll look at it and we'll figure out, you know, what this thing is all about. So she did it, and he read this writing that she wrote the next day, and he was just downright flabbergasted. He was floored. He thought, there is no way that this woman could have wrote this thing. As I said, it was kind of in a spiritual tone, which was interesting, being that neither of them were of spiritual interest. And that was the introduction or the foreword or the preface to the Course in Miracles. Now, this book has had such far-reaching effects. As I mentioned in the introduction, Wayne Dyer, he completely is one of the best-selling spiritual authors of all time. He says the Course in Miracles was huge in his life. And then it was Marianne Williamson, I believe is her name. She was on Oprah, and when she was on Oprah and she mentioned the book, the sales really skyrocketed. But up until that time, I think it was a little bit of a sleeper. And I still think it's kind of a little bit of a sleeper book. But let me just read to you one of the phrases in the introduction that just blew me away. It says, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And goes on to explain that there's the real and the unreal. And in this preface, she goes on to explain, by the way, it's written in the voice or the persona of Jesus. So just in case you're wondering, I don't know if Brian, I don't think you knew that, but
No.
so the idea in the book is it's Jesus talking to you. And he says to her, nothing real can be threatened. Now think about that for a second. Like your body, you think about it, we're all going to die, right? So a lot of times we so identify with our own body that we think, when my body dies, I'm going to die. But the reality is we are the soul essence within the body, right? And that part of us can never die.
Oh, interesting.
Do you believe that?
I do, because I hate the idea of, I would miss myself so much.
I think that might be your small self talking to you. we gotta, let's see. I think we have, so nothing real can be threatened. It's pretty cool when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you think about it, in reality, nothing can go wrong outside of, like, you might think, oh, they could take me to jail, or they could beat me up, or I could die of a terrible disease. But at the end of the day, the very essence of who you are can never be harmed. Pretty powerful.
Well, I think that speaks of the boldness of what I believe the boldness of the apostles, who, as we all know, they all ended tragically. They all ended with their lives being shortened because of their belief in Christianity. But they had to go to that place, obviously, of not fearing, because they knew of of another place, of a life after the life.
Right.
12 people can rarely agree on anything.
True.
And we all know that's the story, you know. I mean, when I was in St. Peter's 6 years ago,
That being St. Peter's Square in Rome.
yeah, and then when we went into the Vatican, and you're inside there for the first time, and then I didn't realize that Peter was down in that crypt down below. And that all the popes were in the walls down in the sanctuary from hundreds and hundreds of years. That that whole thing was built in the 1500s, but yeah, interesting. That I think that's where our true self comes out, is when we think of destiny and why am I really here? Is there more to life? And when you find that that nobody really can hurt you, they can obviously hurt your body, but that you're more than that. Again, I would miss myself if I were just if it was just,
If that's all it was.
it's just too.
Because you wouldn't be around to miss yourself, because you'd be gone. It's like being asleep, without dreaming. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, that's the survival part of us that's built in there to want to continue.
So do you think, that brings up another thing, is that God, you said this book is written in the voice of Jesus. So
That's right.
As God speaking to man.
Yeah, kind of like yes and no. I mean, yes, in the sense that, what the heck? What's my cat doing over there?
I kind of like that. That's that white noise in the background.
No, I don't like that. Here, I've got the spray bottle here. If you got a clear shot, what do they say in the action movies? I got a clean shot. If you got
Take it.
Yeah, take it.
Take it.
But I've got two cats, by the way, for those of you who are listening. I've got a Savannah cat and a Maine Coon cat, and they're feisty. And I should have fed them. Normally, what I do before the live stream is I feed them a massive amount of food.
So for today.
Yeah, so I forgot to, and now, of course, they're going, what's going on over there? Anyways, what were you going to say, Bria?
What I was going to say, one of my favorite actresses of all time, Jodie Foster, is in a sci-fi movie that is a very spiritual movie, and that's Contact. And I know you've seen it. One of my favorite parts is when they're at the Arecibo radio telescope in Puerto Rico. But there's a line in the movie early on where her dad, who is he's a fan of getting the telescope out and looking out into the heavenlies, and she grew up doing that as the daughter. And the dad says to Jodie Foster, as a young girl, that Jodie asked her dad, "So, Dad, do you think there's other people or life?" She says, I can't remember exactly how but basically, are there other people out there in space? And Dad says, well, that's a whole lot of space. It would be kind of wasted if there wasn't. And I like to use kind of the same thing and say, because we are, even in the scriptures, it says how we are wonderfully made. We are wonderfully made. You go in the Sistine Chapel, and there's that painting of Michelangelo with God reaching to man and giving life.
That's right.
And I'm thinking that, well, if it was just for this, so I can toil on earth and then I'm gone, the me is gone.
It'd be an awful waste,
It would be an awful waste of a wonderfully made.
Yeah, well, yeah. So
right?
we know.
Yeah.
The ego doesn't always know, because the ego wants to stay alive. But we know that within us is this soul essence, and that the body dying, energy. One thing we've learned from science is that energy never really, energy doesn't ever just disappear. It always sort of migrates into something else or transforms itself. So here's the thing. The preface of this book, even though it's written in this kind of Christian dialogue of, Jesus talking, he talks a lot about atonement and the Holy Spirit and all these things. But in reality, it's so non-sectarian. Like for example, the whole preface is about, I'm here to show you between, I'm here to make a distinction between the real and the unreal. And like the unreal are the things that you perceive. So when you look at your life and you go, okay, I perceive that I am, and we all write this story about ourselves, like I am a man who likes to surf and do yoga and so on and so forth. But, here's the interesting things about me. And we talk about all these things about who we are and what our hobbies are and what's important to us. I'm not saying that those things aren't real to us in our human existence. But what this preface lays out is the difference between perceived truth or perception, I should say, and sort of this long-standing kind of eternal reality, which isn't, and even Jesus spoke of that in the Bible. He's like, hey, heaven and earth pass away, but this won't pass away. It's like wisdom, eternal wisdom, like these things, they're not really negotiable, And so the book is very interesting in that instead of focusing like so many scriptural texts or spiritual texts focus on how to better yourself, the moral code, teaches you about God, so on and so forth. This book is so different in that it focuses on how we perceive things. And for example, I remember a situation in my family where a very traumatic event happened in our family. And what happened was I observed the people in the family and how each of us had a different take on this, somewhat tragical kind of situation. And I watched how the interpretation of the different people in the family affected their outlook on life, their life from that point on, and so on and so forth. And it was very interesting because some people thought, well, okay, this or that happened, and this is how they took it. They wrote a story on it, like, but that's okay, and blah, blah, and so on and so forth. And when this thing happened, I hate to even say tragic. I say tragic because most of the time on Earth, when you consider, losing someone, for example, that's considered to be a tragic event when you really love someone. But it's interesting how different people can take it differently. And we kind of, perception is reality. And that's a very powerful statement because even though the book doesn't deal with it in that sense, what it tries to delineate from is the real and the unreal. And anything that's being perceived is our story. It's just like if you sit here in a room and you look around and you say, okay, I see a guitar over there. I see a plant. I see a couch. Whenever you see those things, I see the couch, you think of comfort. I see the guitar, you think of, nice sounds. And so we identify all these different things in the room with, and this by the way is not only in the book, but it's in, there's a student guide and an instructor guide. So the student workbook is a 365 page workbook. And the first assignment is to look around the room and look at things like the plant and try and attach no meaning to them in that sense, because so much of what we're perceiving in our mind is our opinion. Like for example, if I worked at a nursery,
and it's not necessarily real.
It's not true necessarily. Like let's say I worked in a nursery, and let's say my boss was an evil taskmaster, and didn't schedule me early enough to get all the watering done. Maybe didn't even provide the right materials or staff to do the watering. And let's just say that I was constantly in trouble because they're like, look at the plants over there are dying. We have to throw those out. Great job, Owen, or whatever. That would be kind of depressing. Then when I sat in my house 10 years later and looked at my plant, I could have stress from that, right?
Yeah.
Right? From past traumatic, post-traumatic stress disorder. But the fact is, when I'm sitting there in my living room looking at my plant, that plant is not screaming out to me. It's not judging me. It's not wanting me to stress about its existence, is it? That's just me looking at the plant and imposing on it, or in my own mind, reliving the story. So think about how far that could go in relationships and things like that. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is getting when you started to tell me about the book at first, this is really hitting home and very deep. I mean, it could be for everybody.
It could be for everybody. Okay, so like, for example, I highlight a couple phrases in the preface. It says, we look inside first, decide what kind of world we want to see, and then we project that world to the outside, making it the truth, quote, as we see it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Have you ever known someone who is playing the victim card all the time?
Of course.
Yeah, we all have, right? And all they talk about is, oh man, you wouldn't believe what the DMV did to me now. Or, you know, they always have a story, their victim story. I mean, really, is life all about victimhood?
No.
No. But you get the picture. It's a story. And some people, you know, let's face it, we all do. Sometimes we like attention.
Speaking about how we perceive things, I had camp today and the kayaking with all these young people, future counselors, and one of the young campers kayaking down through the channel had he was somewhere on the spectrum, and I hung close to them to make sure that they were okay the whole time. And they did a great job. They couldn't go as far as the other young adults, but they gave it their best, and I kept on congratulating them, like, you're doing a great job, you're doing a great job, keep on going, you got this, you got this. And they did, and they did. And then they got a little tuckered out, and one young man got really close to the breakwater, and as you know, at the foot of the breakwater, because all the guano gets washed off the rocks into the ocean down below, which causes a kelp forest, the algae forest of California brown kelp to giant kelp to grow, and their kayak kind of got tied up in some of the kelp. Now, perception, most young people would either start popping the bladders of the kelp with their fingers or pushing it off the boat. But the young man who had a learning disability, out of nowhere, he just became terrified because the kelp it seemingly seemed like it was trying to get into the boat. And you know how kelp is. It's just, you know, and it's kind of slimy and all of that. And the kelp was pushing up against the boat because they were getting close to the rocks. But his perception of that reality at that point was, you know, like fear of his life. And at that point, I actually towed them in and brought them to safety, because I thought things could escalate. And but it wasn't real, was it? I mean,
no. And
this was he was, you know, it wasn't, this kelp was going to crawl in here and get me. And, you know, for somebody else, it could be some, we all have our points, I guess.
We do. But that was a good illustration because you could see that it wasn't real. It was obvious to you.
Oh, yeah.
And then you see the accompanying emotions, and then, you know, you kind of think, okay, you know, you try and deal with that. Here's this unreality kind of perspective. And you are, as God at that point, seeing this child.
Oh, I had complete, without me there, they would still be there.
Right.
And the beautiful young kids, and they just need a little help from people, and sensitivity and all of that. Let them know what's real and what isn't.
Yeah. So I love that illustration. The step that what they cover in the preface is, as we learn to recognize these perceptual errors that we have, that we learn to look past them, or they use this term, or forgive. Now, I find that interesting. So at some point in our life, and this usually happens, it usually happens whether you read a book or not, it just happens at some point in your life, you begin to awaken. You get spiritual sight, second birth, whatever you want to call it. And as that happens, we begin to realize our perceptual errors. We begin, like I realized it surfing, because every time I used to paddle out on a really big day, I would get scared. Well, you know, I was going to say the word, but I'm not going to say the word. But, you know, I'd get really scared. And then when things started to change for me, I realized that was a perceptual error. I remember being out in big surf going, okay, this is big. I'm about to get pounded. But I did not practice the process that happened from perception before. I saw it as a perceptual error. And what they're saying in the preface here is that once we learn to recognize these perceptual errors, we look past them, or, and this is what I love about this book, it redefines forgiveness, or we forgive. I like that because in reality, they go on to talk about how until you can forgive yourself, you're going to have a hard time forgiving anyone else, and that it starts with you.
There's that just the whole, when you started to talk about forgiveness right there, reminded me of a word that I've been seeing a lot lately, and I really like this word. It's 4 letters.
Is it like a 4-letter word, like in a? It's not a 4-letter word. 4-letter word.
It's just a 4-letter word.
Okay.
It's not like any other 4. And the word is okay.
Yes.
And that word is huge.
Okay. That is, I'm really excited you're saying this. Finish your thought, and then I'm going to like just back you up on that.
Yeah. And the way I see it is somebody telling me, when you, whether it's at work, whether I'm on the boat, whether I'm crewing or whatever it is, just somebody who I'm looking up to, and they say, that's fine, that's okay. You know, be who you are.
Yeah.
However you finish it off, it's okay.
I love that. Isn't it? It's like coming home, isn't it? Do you know
that acceptance, right?
Do you know? I think you know this partially because it touches all spiritual traditions. But did you know that the word "okay," which is essentially, let's just call it yes for now. Can I agree? Could we agree on that? Yes. The word yes, like for example, in the Western tradition of Christianity, we have the word "amen," which means "so be it," or truly, truly. It's like saying yes, really. Like sometimes someone says to you, you want to go surf, and you're like, amen. That means it's like yes, right? So that's a spiritual word for yes. In the East, the spiritual word for yes, you want to take just a random stab in the dark, what it might be?
No, because I won't guess it.
It's om.
Oh, it is.
It means the same thing amen means. It means so be it, or yes. Now here's this is going to blow your mind. The funny thing about amen, and if you think about it, amen, actually om, I don't know if you know it, but om starts with it's actually not O-M, it's A-U-M.
You're kidding.
So how close is the word A-U-M to A-M-E-N?
A lot closer than O-M.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm gonna throw a curveball at everyone out there, especially, I know there's people out there listening who are big yoga people, yoga fanatics, and I know there's people that, maybe not many, because maybe they don't like this kind of podcast, but maybe some, hardcore Christians who are really, fundamentally fixed in, a literal kind of like collective agreement, like we see in a lot of churches. The truth is, Jesus in Revelation, when he was seen in his resurrected state, the Apostle John, when he saw him, he said, well, I fell down at his feet as dead. And he said, don't be afraid. I'm the Alpha, the Omega. And he also called himself the Great Amen. I don't know if you ever remember that.
I do remember that.
And what did John say? He said, I fell at his feet as dead, and his voice was the voice of what? Of many running waters. Now, what a lot of people don't realize in the West, and this is what I want to get out to Christians, there's a practice in the East, an amen practice or an om practice, where you chant it out loud, but you also chant it mentally. and then you listen to your own body. Einstein said all matter is energy. All energy is vibrating. All matter is vibrating, and all vibration is sound. The truth is, in the East, there's a practice called Nada Yoga where you can learn to listen to the Amen, the sound in your body. And do you know what it sounds like? It sounds like a freaking waterfall. The sound of many waters.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
telling you, Brian, we have got it all wrong when it comes to sectarianism and exclusivity. This is a very, very powerful discussion. And
Many waters. That's interesting.
Many waters. And
Many waters.
And the truth is, in this practice of Nada Yoga, they teach you how to listen to the sound within your body. So first you listen to the vibration, the sound. It sounds like a waterfall. When you get good at it, it sounds like you're sitting. It's not like just going to Kauai, going up, near Princeville or going to one of these little waterfalls. It's like going to Niagara Falls or Iguazu Falls in Brazil. This is what it's like. So it's a raging waterfall sound. You can hear it in your own body, but then after a certain amount of time, you will begin to hear the cosmic the of creation, which is out there as well. So this is a practice in the East. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. I love how you pointed out that you love the word okay. There was a time in my life when people would text me all the time and I would simply answer with yes. And I had numerous people tell me, I don't know what it is, man, but every time you just say yes, it's like, it gives me the chills. But that's because all the promises are what? They're yes and amen. Yes and amen. Yes and om. It's all the same. The divine being, whatever you want to call it, presence, God, spirit, is saying yes. Is saying, it's like the spirit and the bride say what? They say come. Yes. And so it's pretty exciting. So Course in Miracles, amazing, amazing book.
So, this got me thinking about this whole thing about the real and unreal. And, it's easy to, for instance, I love to cook.
Yeah, what are you going to cook for dinner tonight?
I have no idea.
For Rachie? You don't know?
No, we just might.
Just order out?
We might just go out.
I thought because I'm
because we're doing this podcast.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now. Cut into my shopping time.
Yeah. But okay, let's just for a minute pretend like you were getting home early enough. If you went to the store, what were you going to make tonight? You already had something in your mind.
I did.
Let's talk about culinary because that's spiritual too.
Yeah, there's this recipe of chickpeas. I wanted something hearty, but something that would be good in the summer. It's warm right now here in California. So chickpeas with the summer squash gets grilled. But then we add the summer squash. After you've grilled the summer squash, you then put it into a cast iron pan, which is also on the grill outside. And you mix it with the cherry tomatoes that have been in the pan. And, if you leave them in there long enough, they then explode and all their juices start flowing. Oof. And then you end up mixing this with the chickpeas. So you have squash, chickpeas, and then you serve it on. I think its roots are probably they seem a little Indian. You serve it on, like some basmati rice.
Oof.
And then cilantro on top.
Wow, that sounds pretty higher world to me. I think cooking is like, don't you think it's like a...
Oh, it is.
It's something about cooking, isn't there? And eating a good meal that you cooked.
It is. It's just a gift that God gives, and that I just can't do the. It's hard to treat it like I got to eat something.
Yeah, like it's a commodity. It's more of an act of sacred worship, isn't it?
There's just something about whether it can just be the making something delicious that the other person, and you know what? And I must tell you, even if it's just for myself now, I used to be to where if I didn't have somebody to share it with, then I didn't want to go to the extent. But today I made this avo sandwich, and yesterday on the boat I made the best tuna sandwich you could ever have, and I shared it with the captain. And there's just something about sharing what you've toiled over a little bit with your friends. And that's a deep thing right there, because after you're gone, what did you leave? Well, I touched this person through my cooking.
Right.
I made their life for that moment a little bit more joyous, and it wasn't just I'm hungry, we need to get something. And
I love that, because I was reading a writing the other day from this spiritual leader, and he was warning people. He said, now don't get too self-absorbed in idleness. And he wrote this back in the 20s, 30s. So this was way before Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and all that. But he was like, now don't get too self-absorbed in, these little things. He said, make sure you do things and leave your immortality. And I thought about that. I go, what the heck? What did he mean by that? And then the more I thought about it, I thought, I know what he meant. It's like when you go to a memorial service for someone, you can tell the people that left immortality, that impacted people's lives. I mean, people are going to get up there and cry and just say, I love this person, I miss this person, almost no matter what. You've always got the loved ones. And that's not to say this is a contest, but when you really know when you're at a memorial service, when someone's left something immortal, in the sense of, it's like you touch someone's life, and then that person's life is never the same again. And that it's like throwing a little pebble into a pond, man. The waves go out and they just keep going forever and ever.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think there's very few, when you think of great people, I'm not going to mention the gentleman's name here in San Juan, but I'd never gone to a memorial, and he wasn't a famous man, but I did know him very well, and I always loved being around him because it was always a good time. He always had something to share. Great to my kids. But when we went to his memorial, I've never seen so many people. He had touched from the young people to the very old people, and very wealthy man. But he wasn't one to just spend all of his money on himself. One of the few very well-to-do people that I know who just seemed like he shared it, and my God, it was, I think it was probably historic for this town, for San Juan. But and I don't. Again, it's not like you said. It's not a contest.
It's not. That's the world of perceptions. I got to be better than this guy. That's not. It's not real. You can make it real and let it affect you and stress you, but yeah, it's not real. But that's beautiful though, when you go to someone's memorial like that and you're just touched by them. I mean, it's a sign of something more. One of the things they say in the preface is we love in order to get something ourselves. And that is, in fact, what passes for love in the dream world, it says. In the dream world. So it's kind of interesting because this book calls you out from the preface, and it's like, hey, most people's definition of love is to do something in order to, to get something. And we're all, it's, again, this is not a contest, and we're all guilty of, but it goes to show you that real love is not seeking anything in return. It's the joy of giving. But how many people are duped by their own, small self and this delusion or this, imaginary world, thinking that, I've got to get all these things, and everything that we do sometimes is in order to get something. But I fear that if that's where we live, then it's like the book said, this in fact is what passes for love in the dream world. You're in the dream world. at that point. And, you know, it's okay. You can wake up from the dream. You can get out of it. It's not the end of the world.
I'm looking forward to waking up from the dream.
Well, you are.
Yeah.
You're waking up from the dream. So there you have it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set you free so you can go
Cook dinner.
Well, you could cook dinner. Hey, but before you guys tune out, though, I have another guest coming up, so don't take off. But as we're winding down, I'm thankful for Brianne. Brianne and I have been friends for 12 years at least.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And you're one of those good friends through thick and thin. We all change over time, you know, or we find, you know, our vision for life, and we get more refined. And it's cool when you're growing and you see another friend and you just see him along the way in the journey.
Amen.
Yeah. Peace be upon you, my friend. So what I'm thinking is, in the future when we do this, it's all going to be about self-discovery. What's going to touch other people is us sitting here talking and awakening, and they will awaken with us when we talk. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think there's a how would I say a universal kind of connection in doing it like that.
Totally.
I'm gonna have to get going.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm still live right now, so.
When you said that, I was going, this is perfect.
You've got 2 minutes.
Oh, did you listen? Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Okay.
Okay.
To go plan the meeting.
I'm going to send you the text to the link right now. You can listen to the rest on the way in the car, or you can send it to your peeps.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Yeah, nice seeing you.
Absolutely, dude.
Thanks for
I
being
love
such a good
everything.
neighbor to my friend.
Dude, totally, this has been such a great. We have great adventures.
Totally. Okay.
This is my word.
I sent you the text.
Great weekend.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, guys.
Okay. Have a seat.
Howdy.
Get in there.
Yeah?
Can you hear?
I can hear the music.
Yeah, good.
Yeah? But I can't hear you. Is that
Yeah, we're
okay?
muted right now.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Hello, hello.
Cool. That was a great stuff, you guys. Oh my gosh.
Get real close to the mic. Give me a
Oh,
test.
hi. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Cool.
We're just gonna go for it.
Just have fun with it.
Yeah. Have fun with it.
That was great with the kids, dude. They were like,
Oh my gosh, Macy was. I left the closet door open. And she had the food bag, and she was like, "There's food right over here."
it's not as fun.
Okay, here I go. Okay. That was so good having Brianne. I just love having that guy. in, and on the break, he was just, I think he's going to come once a week. So I'm excited about that. I'm also really excited to have my very good friend and neighbor, Vanessa. Vanessa's with us now.
Hello.
Yes.
Great to be here.
Yeah, well, hang on a second. Okay, say it again because you were still on mute. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so I've got Vanessa here, and Vanessa and I have had many conversations that were spiritual. So you were listening to the live stream.
I was.
So you know what we were talking about. One of the things that the preface also said that kind of stood out to me was our sense of inadequacy, weakness, and incompletion comes from the strong investment in the scarcity principle that governs the whole world of illusions. It's kind of interesting, this whole, this whole idea of the world of illusions, and this scarcity principle, and, inadequacy, weakness, incompletion. Again, this is, I think the biggest awakening anyone can have, I wouldn't say don't feel what you're feeling, because, that's a bad practice for parents to tell kids, or for, girlfriends or boyfriends to tell their significant other, or spouses to tell each other. You don't want to tell someone, look, don't feel what you're feeling. But I think the biggest thing that stands out to me about what I just read to you is once we kind of get our internal housework done, then we don't have to feel all that junk anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's like revolutionary. I mean, this book is so powerful. It doesn't surprise me that the visitation of this message came to two psychological people, because to me, this is like a breakthrough in personal psychology.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, we live in a world where we're pushed like more, we want more and more.
Yes.
When it's really less.
Yeah.
We don't need that much.
Totally. So pull that mic closer to you a little bit, just so we can get a little more volume out of you. Good. Okay.
Is this better?
Yeah, that's better. That's better. So, when I think about like, oh, you mean I don't have to have that scarcity principle. I don't have to have, this incompletion or the feeling of weakness or inadequacy. I mean, those feelings, think about how those emotions roll through your body. So I've talked about in the podcast before, and I know you're a faithful listener. Thank you for that. I want to hit it like a ding thing here. How about a bicycle horn? No.
Perfect.
I don't know. That's kind of dumb. Can't hear it because I don't have that feature set. But anyway, so the thing is I've talked about in the podcast, many times before about, how perception is reality. And to think about, I've also talked about how thoughts are waveforms. And sometimes something in your head, but then you discover it personally through experience. And what I started noticing as I got deeper into the contemplative practices of meditation, pranayama, yoga, and things like that, I noticed that thought patterns would come up, and I actually started to feel energy resonating. Particularly, some of these thoughts were what I would call previously subconscious, that were now. Because if anyone's meditated for a long time, one of the things that they'll testify to you is that meditation closes the gap between the conscious and the subconscious. So once you start getting to that point of spiritual vitality, you've got more of a super consciousness, then you begin to become aware of what some of these, what previous were subconscious thoughts. I actually believe that a lot of our pain and illnesses come from this list that I just read to you, because thoughts are powerful.
Absolutely.
They're waves of energy. They resonate through your body. The limbic brain system, they call it the lizard brain. Most spiritual / scientific types think that that's the part of our brain that makes up who we are in our chakras and our energy centers. So think about that. It's powerful. So anyways, yeah, I think that's just, to me, it's mind boggling how big of a statement that is.
Yeah. If our thoughts are holding super heavy and negative, it can really hold us down.
Oh yeah.
And
it can make us sick.
Yeah. I can attest to that.
Yeah. And that's huge news. We always thought of sickness as just, I caught a bug or I injured myself. As someone who does energy work and sees people who need healing, I start to see more and more how so many things are, there's majority of the time it's emotionally based.
Absolutely. And it's essential that I stay connected to things that are of the truth, you know what I mean? Of this, just a being,
Right.
you know?
And
not getting fed from all this outside source, you know, that's really not, it's more about perception
right.
outside of myself.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Cause going back to that first statement, nothing real can be threatened.
Yeah.
So the real part of you, like the soul essence, like think of it like this. In the Raja Yoga tradition, the royal path of yoga, the people who teach on Raja Yoga, they say your soul is the king. It sits in your body, sort of ruling. Now, if you're stressing and worrying about things that aren't real in the life of illusions, I think about there must be a part of you, a higher self, that's just not even stressed or worried. Isn't that, it's kind of crazy to think that the immaterial soul essence within you, the higher self, so to speak, that it is actually, it's not stressed. It's not worried. This is another statement that came across as very interesting that I highlighted. The self that God created needs nothing. It is forever complete. It's safe, it's loved, and loving.
Yes.
I hope no power cords got turned on. I just had a big overweight Maine Coon cat walking across the soundboard. So I picked her up and I just, as I was talking and reading a quote at the same time, with dexterity, I reached my right hand out past my chair and sort of, hovered about 2.5, 3 feet from the ground and, cut the ripcord.
Great example of multitasking.
Yeah, multitasking. But she landed on she landed on my power strip. So that could have been like really bad, like in a technical, like, it's hard enough producing this thing and speaking at the same time, if your cat's like messing with your, the power strip snake thing, it's El Diablo.
That was my bad though.
No, that's okay.
She came over to say hello.
Yeah, she came over to say hello because she knows you worked in the veterinary field, and she knows, what the thing. Let's go with this.
I was a cat in a previous life.
Let's go with this because this is good. You ever notice how it's animals and babies who seem to pick up on who people are? And parents are amazed sometimes. Parents can be like, they'll look at their baby or whatever, or even their dog, which to some people, like their dog is their baby, and they'll look at their baby or their dog going, oh my gosh, why are they so, and then they'll look and there it is. There's an angel on earth right there. There's a person that, granted, they may not be, they're not perfect. Let's just be honest. They're not perfect. Let's get conscious. Let's get real. They're not perfect. But the baby or the dog noticed someone who's somehow at least awoken to the world of illusions. Hello.
Just a little bit more pure,
Right. Just a little more soul, a little more permeating soul essence. How do we know this is true? You could have your back to the door, and this has happened to all of us at some point in our life. You could be in a Starbucks or a nice smaller coffee shop that's not corporately run. And you feel someone walk in and you're like, ooh, and you turn around because it's like bad energy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Heavy.
You can feel it. You can feel it.
And I guarantee you there's all this kind of mind chatter probably going on,
Oh yeah. But that just goes to show you that mind is power, that thoughts are energy waveforms.
Yeah.
And that they're not only just in your body, potentially either blessing or causing harm. Well, let's be honest, it's one or the other. I talked before how it could cause harm, but we didn't talk about the good it can do, the bliss it can create. So it can do either or.
Right.
But it goes into your actual auric field, and some people's auric field projects quite far. And that's why when you're like at that coffee shop and you're just like standing there minding your own business, waiting for your little like upside down, triple venti, whatever, you're like, what the heck? And you turn and you careen your head around. You're like, whoa, bad energy. And then sure enough, you see it. There's something going on.
Yeah.
There's like someone giving someone a hard time, or someone scolding a young child or an animal, or something bad's happening. You can feel that energy.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure.
But I'm not here to talk about the bad energy. But that just goes to show you, though, that these things aren't, they're powerful, and they're not so much, they're distance related. They're not just so super localized,
But I've been there too, which helps, in order to because I've seen the darkness, I want to be in the light, I want to do what I can and just stay there, to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And just, leave a positive mark on this world,
That's a goal. Mm-hmm. But you know what I think? I love that statement, follow the bliss or follow the joy. I want to leave a positive mark too. But you know what I found? Here's a little 2-cent thought here. Whenever I've followed my bliss or my joy, that's when I've left a good mark. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's so weird. Like, I remember one time I bought, when I was really young and I first started realizing there was a spiritual reality that was greater than me, I went into a spiritual bookstore and I bought a famous book on humility by Andrew Murray. And the lady at the check, she shouldn't have said this because she should be selling books. She shouldn't make any comments, but she made a comment. She goes, "So you're going to get humble, huh?" So I was like, I don't know. So I bought the book. And then a couple weeks later, I came back in for something else. And then she said to me, "Are you humble yet?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe not." Now, here's the funny thing. This is what I learned. I learned it's okay to have those desires. And it's okay to buy those books and read those things. But when we follow our joy, it's weird. It's like, well, we know about this. Like if you look at certain religious groups, sometimes the people that are in the highest positions are the most unfriendly, the most red tape, the most judgmentalism. So sometimes in people's spiritual pursuit of certain things, like spiritual pride, I think is worse than worldly pride. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I know because I used to give people the business, the spiritual business,
Yeah.
and that's not spirituality. So what I've learned is over time, and I'm not perfect at it, but I've learned that follow the joy, follow the bliss. Now, Brianna and I were talking on break, and I hope he's listening in his nice Mercedes right now or whatever. He has a nice car. I think he should be listening on Bluetooth. If you're listening, honk, Brian. But we were talking about when he was getting out of the chair and you getting ready to get in the hot seat, he was talking about, he said, "Oh my gosh, this was so much fun." And I said, "Yeah, don't think of it." I said, think of it like we're awakening together, Brian. We're talking about it. And when we start awakening in this process, then other people hear and they take part in it. But anyways, I realized that this podcast should be more about the things that make me interested and excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And it's great to have our friends remind us, when we might be, there's many times that I kind of fall asleep,
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, I think, that's part of the fun of life is it's like we awaken, but then we doze off and then we wake up again. But every time we wake up, it's just perfect.
Yeah.
It's still beautiful. It's never like Brian said, it's like his boss, like he's like, "Hey, I was trying to take the sales down." The boss like, "Okay, whatever you could do, that's okay." It's like, that's what I love that he said that, because that's what like heaven is like, in the sense of not so much a place, but it's that feeling of being home.
Yeah.
I worked for a company where the owners were tough and a lot of the employees were afraid of them. And I remember one day, and they didn't like spending money in particular on things. And I remember one day, the son of the company said to me, "Oh, we need to buy this." And then I got really kind of like, post-traumatic stress disorder. Like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to go tell your parents, and they're not going to, I know.
They're not going to approve.
And he goes, "Oh, hang on a second." And he just pulled out his cell phone, called Dad. Ring, "Hello? Hey, Dad." And then he just started talking to him about it. And he hung up. That was that. And I realized that's what the spiritual life is like. The spiritual life is like, there's no fear. And all the answers are yes.
Right.
For the real and the good stuff.
Going with the flow.
Yeah.
No resistance.
No resistance. The parents obviously don't say yes to bad things, but the child grows up and realizes you can't live off candy. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Vanessa, you've always been a source. It's funny that you said you're not always there, but I always think about how you, to me, seem like a very consistent level of just peace and bliss. I mean, I know you probably know things that I don't know because you're inside your head. But when I look at you, I think here's a person who has found this permanent reality, so to speak, not the temporal unreality, but the permanent reality.
Mm.
What would you say to people who are like, hey, I'm just trying to find it, or how can I hook into it? Because does it seem like to you it's kind of like a frequency more than it is anything else, or is it just a mindset, or what is it to you?
I feel like it's a mindset, it's just about being. It's not like about trying to find something, it just is.
Right.
And by what I'm feeding myself, my physical body, my mental, just try to do the positive practices on a daily basis just to keep me in this place, Practice.
Yes.
Daily practice. There's no, it's about progress.
Right.
There's no perfecting.
Right. I like that.
It keeps the pressure off, really.
Yeah. No pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every once in a while we get pressure, like we're running late or
Sure.
we're at a light and
With
there's
the worldly.
Yeah, it's bound to
Havoc.
happen. You know what the good test is, though? I thought about that. The good test of how you're doing is when you're in a traffic situation. Let's say the person in front of you is not going on a green light because they're texting or they're checking their Facebook or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person behind you is honking and you're in between.
Mm-hmm.
The real test is, does your heart rate go up at that point?
Right. Right.
No, it's weird because, and again, it's not a performance thing, but my experience in life has been, as strong as I am in those permanent things and not living in the world of illusion, I'm just not affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like I even have to try to not be affected by it. It just doesn't.
It just is.
It just is. And it's like, and it can actually be a little funny sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It takes on what they call in the East, the Leela perspective, which is the divine play. So here's the person in front of you. They're the self-absorbed person looking at their social media. And then there's a person behind you who is the stressed out, obnoxious honker. And you're just in the middle. And and you know what? You see it like it's a production. It's kind of like this drama. It's real, but it's not really real. I mean, you're sitting here in a body and you're hearing the horn honk, and someone else could have their heart rate up and then start honking, but it's not really, you see how it's real, but it's not really real.
Right.
It's just, it's a perceived situation, right?
Right. Absolutely. And I was like in that place at one time, like not too long ago, just this stressed out, except I could see myself not rippling outward with like honking and yelling and it was more internal, So now, like today, it's a choice. It's a choice that I don't have to react to the world that way. It's more of a dance.
Yeah.
Like I'm interacting with people. I'm responding. I'm not reacting to stuff as it happens. I mean, we live in this world and wow, I might be late. There might be traffic, Okay.
Yeah.
It just is what it is,
Yeah. Yeah. It's, wow.
I have a bone. I might break it, I don't have to be upset about that. I can just ease into it and lean into it, whatever life hands me.
It's interesting because I think the one thing that I'm learning is now I'm in my 50s, and one of the challenges is the body winding down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So because a lot of times there's, like, I've had a knee problem just the last 24, 48 hours, and I was thinking, wow, I was like kind of giving it a rest, and then I was thinking, what if this pain never goes away?
Mm-hmm.
Then what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
But these are the thoughts that creep in. But you know the weird thing? Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. You're not going to believe it. But this is the Course in Miracles. By the way, I mentioned up front, some people get the book because they're thinking, miracles, Course in Miracles. Well, heck, I want to do miracles. So I would think that probably over 50% of the people that bought the book thought they could learn how to do miracles. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to do more than just this introduction. I'm going to do a few more episodes on some different favorite things. So there's one whole, it's actually in chapter 1 where it just talks about the definition of miracles. But I'm going to tell you a story that seems quite miraculous. I think there will be some people that have a hard time believing it, but I'm going to tell you anyways. And I think it's an interesting thought about what we're talking about here. So this was several years ago. I was drinking a lot of yerba mate tea, and I had this beautiful, I don't know if you've ever seen those Japanese iron tea kettles. Mm-hmm. They're cast iron, which is what's cool about that is you can, heat up your water and then just bring it out to the table, put a pad down or whatever. And then you've got hot water for half an hour or whatever. And you can keep doing your small cups of Chinese or Japanese tea or whatever you want. So I had this beautiful Japanese cast iron teapot. And what happened was, as I was heating up the water, I hadn't filled up a lot of water in it. And that could be a problem with that pot, because when you had the heat on high, if the pot got really hot, the part above the water line would get extremely hot, like a pan that's just sitting on the stove without anything in it, with a heat cranking, like in a cast iron pan. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you throw something in it, it just kind of shoots out. Well, here's what happened. I didn't have much water in it. The spout was just hot as all could be. And when I went to pour, and I had my teacup in one hand and I had the tea kettle in the other hand, so I was pouring the tea or pouring the water into my yerba mate, my, what do they call those things? The gourd with the bombilla. Mm-hmm. So I was pouring the water into the gourd, and the unthinkable happened. When the water hit the spout, which was so hot, it just shot out. It didn't pour out. It was like a rocket.
Wow.
Now, my hand had already been burned before that situation. So it was already, if you've ever, got a sunburn or whatever, and then you get in a hot shower, anything that's hot hurts even worse, right? So it had already been burned, that particular hand. The craziest thing about that situation was when that water shot out of the tea kettle and hit my hand, something came over me, and I can't quite describe it. I did cry out to Jesus, which I think was just a knee-jerk reaction. Like a lot of people do that, right? Even people don't believe in him when they're mad, they quote him, his name or whatever, right? I don't know why I did that, but I said that. But it was like a prayer. But anyways, here's the funny thing. That water that shot all over me did not burn me. It didn't, for the life of me, it did not burn me. Mm. And as I thought about that, I thought, and the church bells are ringing in the background here. I don't know if the peeps can hear it, but I think it's interesting because I'm thinking, like, when you think of miracles, what if there was a reason? Like, for example, what if there was a reason that the water didn't burn my skin cells because of something that happened in my body, something happened in my mind, my thought process? Right. Mm-hmm. What if it wasn't so miraculous in the sense of, oh, he should have got burned, but he didn't. But what if they find out later, like 200 years from now, oh, if you have this set of brain, like if you have a brain, these brain waves active at this time, the body is like 90% like, less likely to get burned, or you know what I mean? Like, what if they find out the reasons for this stuff later? A
certain recipe, just the way we're thinking.
Right. Mm-hmm. A certain recipe or a certain chemical that's released or whatever it might be. Who knows? But it makes me wonder. There was a reason why I thought this. We were talking about
how negative thoughts can, but how.
Right.
What about positive thoughts?
So this is the thing. Thank you for that. I don't even think that was it. But this is something good to go with, though. I think it was it. But we're always talking about, because we're always trying to do the clarion call, like, hey, don't think bad thoughts. You'll get sick, or it's not good for you, which is true. But we forget to talk about the other side, the positive side, which is think about what good you can do for yourself, what good you can do for your body. Like, okay, we all want joy and peace and bliss. What about that? I mean, can we create it? I think absolutely yes.
I feel the same way. We can manifest.
We can. Mm-hmm. We can manifest it. We can bring it into view. We can bring it to pass. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a reason. And, as I mentioned to Brianne up front, this book is written in a very Christian-esque language. And there's a reason, why Jesus in the Gospels kept saying, your faith has made you whole. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they were like, oh, Master, you healed me. And he would say, well, it's your faith that's healed you. Mm-hmm. It's your faith that saved you. Mm-hmm. It's your faith. He kept saying that over and over again. I'm pretty amazed by that.
Yeah.
I think that's something that, you can just chew on that for quite a
Right.
long time.
That hits my soul. It really does.
I mean, what is that saying about us as people? I mean, that's pretty phenomenal. So we're creating our own reality.
Absolutely.
If you need to sneeze, I can mute your channel right here because I noticed you were
No,
like
I'm all
fighting.
worried about like what can everybody hear?
Oh no,
Like a
but
sound machine over here.
everyone can hear everything. I mean, you were listening to the live stream and you could hear my Savannah cat Macy trying to break into. So I'd left the closet door open, and there's cat food in there, and she had pulled the bag into the hallway, and I was like, "What the heck is that?" So when Brianne was talking, I muted my mic and I ran over there, and there she was in the hallway, like trying to tear the bag apart. And I'm like, "Wait a second! There's a whole bowl of food that I just."
That's not as fun though, Daddy.
Oh, I know. I'm like, what the heck, man? I was like, I don't know. What's the purpose of that anyways? So yeah, I love this idea of thoughts bringing good things because so many times, I mean, even doctors now know, like when they come across people who have certain diseases and certain, like even if someone's just got like heart disease or they're having high blood pressure issues, they're like, hey, you need to calm down. You need to relax. Do you have a stressful job? Have you ever tried meditation? Do you yoga? These are doctors who don't even do it themselves. But I'm not saying that none of them do it. I'm just saying they know.
Yeah.
They know that if you do certain things, you will bring your body
Yeah.
into wellness
Right.
and tranquility. They may not use the terms. They might say, well, now it's a proven fact that if you meditate at least 20 minutes a day, that your blood pressure can drop X amount of points. They'll say something like that because that's what the science says. But I would tell you, hey, instead of just trying to save your life from like a heart attack, what about making yourself feel good in addition to being healthy? This is what to me, Streams of Light podcast is all about, is trying to like get past not only the world of illusions like the Course in Miracles is talking about, but what are the things we're missing? We talk about the thought life and the practices to avoid the sickness and illness, but let's take it to the next level. What do you think?
I'm a firm believer in visualization. Like nobody ever told me about visualization when I was little, but I did it. I just laid in bed at night and I just imagined like colors coming into my body and like I was just relaxing, I mean, there were some stressful situations on the outside going on. And I mean, I remember that vividly to this moment, and as I grew up, learned more about meditation and I'm just like, wow, that was just an inner knowing.
Right.
I think we have all that we need inside.
We do.
We just need to quiet the mind and, and remember,
It's
know what
amazing.
we already know.
There's an old ancient scripture that says you have no need that anyone teach you these things. And I love that because it's kind of like a parental scolding. Like, look, I don't even need to tell you this. It's inside you. The information is there. The keys to life are there. Life is not just about me. It's not just about my possessions or even just the best health. Life is just about that being, that presence, and it brings, the byproduct of these things brings peace and health. And a lot of times, prosperity too. Have you ever noticed that?
Oh yeah.
People who are prosperous, if you look at a lot of them, I mean, some people just inherited money and they have crappy attitudes. But if you look at people who made their own money, I guarantee you see certain things about their attitude. Totally. Like when you talk about visualization and things like that, these people believe they can do it. And nature marshals, these things into their path. It's crazy.
And so it is, as they say, you believe it, so it is.
So be it. And so be it is what? Amen or
Amen.
Om.
I love that.
Yeah, this is really good. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take one more short break. And when we come back, we're going to kind of just wrap it up with this introduction to Course in Miracles. I'm Chris Anthony. This is Streams of Light Podcast. We'll be right back. Juice? Like good stuff? I love it. So let's see, a couple more. Can you hear this?
Definitely good stuff, Chris.
Hmm?
It's great stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Trying to figure out what to quote next. Okay, we are back. Okay, now here's what I'm thinking. We're going to finish up with a simple, another quote from the preface. And this quote I found very interesting. It says, "The self that the divine created needs nothing. It is forever complete. It's safe, it's loved and loving. It seeks to share rather than to get, to extend rather than to project. It has no needs and wants to join with others out of their mutual awareness of abundance."
I love that.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
That's perfect. It's in giving, in service.
I like how it says it needs nothing. That's the first thing. It needs nothing.
It needs nothing outside of itself.
Like you said, a state of abundance. It's a mentality of, I don't really need anything. Do you ever remember the first time that you really felt that, like, strong within your own being, like that you didn't need a thing?
I probably felt like that a lot as a kid, just playing, like we didn't need much, you know what I mean? Just going outside and just playing in the dirt, you know?
Totally.
And as you grow up and you start gaining more things outside of yourself, that's...
Right. You build up these mental constructs of, your identity and But it is interesting. I'll say this. I did have an awakening in 2009. It was right around the time that the Great Recession hit, and I was doing photography for a living and was doing pretty good in that, but all of a sudden no one wanted to do portraits anymore, and there wasn't much money in it because everyone was just trying to survive. And so I struggled a little bit to survive financially in that time. That was a rough time for a lot of people. I remember one day I had some money and I went to the grocery store, and it was kind of like, have you ever seen that movie Little Women? When it was Christmas morning and they had like bacon and they had like fruit and muffins and all these things. And then they had this, like, in that scene, they decided that they were going to give most of their breakfast on Christmas morning to this family that had nothing. So they packed up, a good portion of the food and everything. I think they might have packed it up all, but I remember that scene, and it wasn't like I was thinking of the scene when I was in the store, but I was very much in the place of the family they gave to, because I was out of money, and then all of a sudden I came into some, and so I went to the grocery store and I started filling up my basket. And I remember I got some eggs, I got some this and that. And I remember when I actually got some bacon in my cart, and I was like, bacon, oh man, I haven't had bacon in a long time. And I was thinking about it because I used to love eating bacon. And I'll never forget it. It was so weird because actually I had what I needed at home to survive. This was just like a special meal, okay? So don't get me wrong, I wasn't starving. But I'll never forget what happened to me at that point. This bacon, bacon had a strong pull on me. Mm-hmm. I mean, you smell bacon, like from miles away, you're like, I'm going to get some bacon. Like you smell it down the street, you're like, I'm going to the store and make some bacon. It's like the cartoons where the guy floats over to the, the smell.
Like Wimpy from Popeye.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like that. And so this bacon was in my cart and all this other stuff. And I had the funniest feeling came over me. At that moment, I realized I put the bacon back. And then I started to laugh. Now, some people from the outside probably thought he's going crazy. But I just had this enormous, overwhelming feeling that I didn't need not only this bacon, I just realized it was a huge spiritual awakening. I left that store without buying anything because I had what I needed to survive at home. And I was laughing because what? The delusion, the curtains of this mass delusion or this personal illusion, the curtains came down. And I saw for that just brief moment at that time, I saw the reality, like, I don't even need this. I was like, I realized at that point, I don't even need food to live. Now, I know some people out there are being like, what is he talking about? Of course you need food to live. Well, for your body to live, I guess. But there's some people that, well, we won't go into that. But anyways, I realized that everything that I needed, I already had. That life itself, the essence, the substance of life, like the soul essence, doesn't need a thing. The self, the divine created, needs nothing. It is forever. Okay, here's the words. It is forever. Number one, complete. It's complete. It's safe. It's loved and is loving.
And in that, there's no wants.
No.
Like you were just content and satisfied with whatever you have in the moment.
I think we all struggle with different things. I noticed that sometimes like girls will struggle a little bit more with feeling safe. Whereas guys might feel like they need to be accepted. I mean, we all have our own things based on gender or just our story. But doesn't that sound like heaven? Like you have everything you need. Like even like it's actually saying that safety, like the feeling of being safe, is more of a state of mind than it is like you are already safe. Anyways, it's
and
crazy.
in that, I can be still, like with where I am. I don't need to be running here and there and trying to, gain more outside myself.
Now, I know there's someone there going, you don't live where I live. I live here, and this is a dangerous neighborhood. So that's a very real, honest question to pose.
Absolutely.
So we're not saying that there's not, places that you might not feel safe, but we're talking about even ultimately if you lived in a bad neighborhood and ultimately if someone robbed you at gunpoint and sadly even if someone shot you and your body died, the part of you
that really matters,
that is really you, your soul essence, would not be killed. Therefore, can you carry that feeling of safety with you into the rough neighborhood? That's kind of an interesting question, isn't it? Have you ever seen someone walk into hell without being afraid? It's kind of interesting to see what happens. It's kind of like things just change as they walk. I mean, you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever, I remember traveling with these guys overseas and they would just do things. I was like, can you do that? And they would do things. And then I noticed that, oh, you can do that. I didn't think you could. This one guy that I traveled with, he had this card. He wasn't an ambassador for the United States, but he had a card. We did a lot of, we did this trip, a humanitarian kind of mission trip together. And he had this card and he had a title on it. It said Ambassador of Love. And I remember him like handing one time he was talking to these people and he goes, I want to meet the mayor. And he goes, the mayor's right over here. And he goes, here. And he handed the mayor his card and it said his name and it said Ambassador of Love. And the guy thought he was like an ambassador of the United States, right? And then the next thing you know, they were going to invite us into this like sacred, I can't remember, but I was like, oh my gosh, that was a little bit of a misunderstanding. But you see what I mean though? Like when you just like step out in and sort of own it. Like if you feel fearful, the bees chase you. And my friend and Brad and I, we joke sometimes. We have this friend from high school, and when we were all in junior high school, he was really afraid of bees. I don't know if he had an allergy or whatever, but we both have this memory etched into our minds. The friend was running down the beach, and he said, as he was running, he yelled, "The bees know when you're afraid." And he was running, and they were chasing him.
I think there's something to that.
There isn't there?
There is, definitely. So when you walk out knowing and just confidence, I mean, hey,
Right.
you know,
Right.
the bees are our friends too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the beekeeper, like, he just goes, he just
Right.
goes out there.
Right.
And a lot of times those guys don't get stung. It's they know when you're afraid. And that works with human beings too, and dogs and other things.
And a lot of times when we walk in confidence and light, I mean, some people are going to be just completely like, oh, I don't want to be there. I don't want to see it. You're so happy. What's wrong?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much going on in the world. We shouldn't be happy.
I get that. I've been there. Have you ever
You know?
been there? Like, oh, this person's too happy. What are they on? I mean, I've been there. Like, well, when you're in the doldrums, when you're in that bad negative space,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you're in a dark place.
Yeah.
And sometimes, your pupils are so dilated in that dark place that you don't like light.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just an energetic mismatch. But you know as well as I do that in this place we're in now, and I can feel it now. I don't know about you, but I feel like bliss on the
Yes.
inside.
Yes.
You can't. You don't want to hold that back. That is meant to go out.
It's meant to share. It's meant to extend, as you just read a while ago. You
Right.
know, it's like your heart open to the sun rather than closed and resistant to everything and afraid.
Yeah.
You know, and somehow that may or may not give someone else permission, or you know what I mean, that they can be there too.
Yeah.
You know, they can walk in the light.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of like catching a virus in the healthy sense. You can
Right.
get the feeling when you're around someone and you see how it is, and you kind of learn that this is a frequency and you can do that. What about you? Do you have any thoughts about, I don't want to ask you questions that are too personal to share on the live stream, but what have you learned in your own life? You could go as far back to your statement on imagination and how that affected your interpersonal relationships or your own perception of reality, or you could even go into fears and things you've noticed from when you feared to when you haven't feared.
Wow. That's all great. I mean, honestly, to what you guys were talking about earlier, just the manifesting of positive, just even lately, I've always seen myself as a positive person. But I have, kind of stepped into the fear of things, and I really see how much that changes the people around me, what's going on around me. If I'm kind of walking in that darkness, it seems to grow, you
Yeah.
know? So the more there are times where I just tell myself to fake it until, I make it.
Right.
You know what I'm going to feed myself these positive, words, and then I feel it.
Yeah, you do.
I really do feel it,
I think if you smile, and I got to do this more because I don't know about you, but sometimes I go into the bathroom and I wash my hands and I look at myself in the mirror and I think, man, you got to smile more often, dude. I mean, sometimes the body isn't always reflecting what's on the inside, but I think in general, I think if you smile, I bet you anything there's been studies done where it releases like
Absolutely.
like serotonin or I don't know, feel good
It does.
stuff.
It does.
I was doing
It takes less effort to smile than it does to frown.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I used to work for a photography studio here in South Orange County, and the owner said, now remember, if there's a lady with wrinkles, you don't call them wrinkles, you call them smile lines.
That's great.
But there's something beautiful about that.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first time I saw The Sound of Music as a kid and seeing Julie Andrews in that opening scene, and she's kind of like swinging through the trees and the sun's on her face, and not that she was super wrinkled or anything like that, but you see that look. That look of life and vitality and smiling. And it's not afraid. It's not afraid of a few wrinkles or a few this or that.
Yeah.
It's just living in the moment, and it just is.
Yeah.
I just love that. So I think if you smile, even if you don't feel it, like fake it till you make it, I think there's something about that. I also know, and I plug this every once in a while. I don't tell people they need to go the path I'm going, but the other day I was at a yoga class, and I'd done yoga the previous night. So I did this Wednesday night class, and this was yesterday morning. I was Thursday morning. I was like, wow, I'm doing 2 yoga class. In the night class I did was like level 2, 3. So it was kind of harder. And then, so I'm doing this morning class and I thought I need to take a couple hits of prana. So I did one of my secret esoteric yoga techniques. And you know what? I'm telling, I want people out there to know this, that whatever you need, it will be given to you. Like I needed not to take drugs or to drink or anything like that, but I needed to find a natural way. Like those receptors in your brain, like what they call the cannabinoid receptors. People think that, those only work when you like smoke THC. That's not true. There's sacred esoteric yogic practices, breathing practices where you can trigger those things.
Right.
So some of us need help. Like some people take medication to relax you, and there's hacks. There's the vagus nerve hack breathing, the heart rate variability breathing, and it will totally, it will take care of these issues. So then I always found the natural way is the best way. I
can absolutely attest to that.
Take a couple take a couple bongos of prana instead of pot, and see how that makes you feel. You don't get the munchies, number 1. Number 2, you don't get tired later.
Right.
You get energy, and your face, the sheen, the gleam. I like that.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us walk around and don't even realize that we're not breathing to our full potential.
Right.
Capacity.
Okay, this brings
Changes everything.
I like that. This brings out a good point, because a lot of people think when I mention yoga, they think it's just going to a class and you exercise. What Vanessa just mentioned was breathing and breathing right. Pranayama is one of the 8-fold limbs of yoga. It's one of the 8 limbs, breathing, or actually pranayama, which is the direction of life force, prana energy. Belly breathing. If you're breathing shallow breaths in your chest, you're more likely to be in the fight or flight mode. If you breathe deep into your diaphragm, into your belly, when you take a breath in, your belly is actually expanding. This is gonna, if you just did that 10 minutes a day, you'd feel high in a good way.
Absolutely. I remember I did yoga for many years before I got the breathing down with the movement, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
When it finally happened, I'm like, wow. All right.
Just, to think that in the air, in the oxygen, in the etheric, in the ether, so to speak, is if I told someone out there who's sitting there in the doldrums of life, and maybe they're depressed because they lost their job or, whatever. If I told them that in the ether, in the air all around you is a divine nectar, that if you learned how to control it and how to work with it, that you would be 100% fine. You know what? I think most people would say, I don't believe that. I'm telling you right now, I'm looking at you, Vanessa, eye to eye. You can see me. Eye to eyes. I'm telling you, it is true. Do you believe this?
I do, because I've experienced it.
I love that.
Yeah. And even when I didn't think, there were some seriously dark days earlier this year, getting over the grief of my father, losing my father, and like not really being able to function as a human being, and then just being gently suggested to get back out there and do what you love. Get up, back out there and get in the water, paddleboard, go to yoga, anything that's just going to open this up for me to start, with that breath. It's everything. It really is. It cleans out all this nasty,
Yeah.
It really does.
It cleans out your energetic channels, the nadis.
Yes.
And the truth is that you can be, through these practices and these actions that you're choosing to do, you can be actually closer to your dad than when he was alive. This is what is mind-boggling to me. This is why I love this book, A Course in Miracles, because it talks about living in unreality. Like I am completely convinced that the static existence of being here in this body on earth is much more difficult and challenging than the greater reality. And so what I mean by that is, like, you can be more united to your dad now than you were when he was here on this earth.
I feel it.
In spirit and heart, in agreement, in communion, in fellowship. There's no distance too far. egoic mindsets sort of, like can be, sorry, for those of you listening, that was Delilah. The timing was pretty amazing. Egoic mindsets. And then she kind of just did this, I don't know, would you call that whiny? It's pretty funny. Egoic mindsets. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, that's what I want to say, because I've lost both of my parents. And, when I lost my mom, it was my first parent that I lost. And that was a hard loss. And when I was doing her slideshow, I did a lot of crying and a lot of emotions were coming up of, issues that related to our relationship and all that. And then when I lost my dad, I noticed that, okay, I've done this before. And not that I'm perfect at it, but I'm just like, okay, I've been here before. And I know where I'm going. And where I'm going is not what I thought the first time. The first time, what I thought was death was the end, period. Even though I believed in heaven, but I still deep down inside, I did see I wasn't in touch with that immaterial, that soul essence. So even though I believed in another place, there would seem to be this finality, like that was it. And there was a lot of sadness and depression. But what I learned in the process was that it's actually a blessing. It's a blessing for them, and it can be a blessing for you. If we go back to what they just said about, in this preface about, it's about extending, it's about wanting to join with others. It's in other words, if we're looking at it from the small self, the false self, the egoic center, then what do we know? Oh,
yeah,
my mom is gone or my dad's gone. And that's a hard thing. I get that. There's some adjustment there, but think about them and think about where they're at and tune into them and look for them and talk to them and see them in your dreams, see them at that young age. There are so many people that have testified. And I mean, it happened with me, with both of my parents. I saw them in dreams not too long after they passed. I believe that they get those hallway passes back to our world, to the world of our dreams, in order that we might know that they're okay. And that one thing that dead people want us to know is, I'm not dead.
Yeah.
Oh, death, where's your sting? It's like, it's not what it seems like.
Right.
That's why I like the term passed away a little bit better than died.
Right.
Just because, some people say transition. I think that's even better.
Right.
They just transitioned.
Transitioned into the next,
Oh my gosh. And the cool thing is, if you can feel this, if you're feeling this, if you're listening to this and you're feeling it, it's not so much a cerebral head thing, but if you're feeling this feeling as we're talking about it, you'll know that you can be connected to them and that you can have a certain kind of communion with them. It's hard to explain. I can't quite quantify it or explain to you. I can't tell you how I got there or exactly even what it feels like, but it's amazing. It's amazing. They are not gone. They are not gone. That's just something to think about as we press on in life. Life can be kind of challenging. It can look pretty bad at times. But the reality is that death is not the end. It's a transition to another world. I want to say a better place. If I said a better place, then you would be duped into thinking that this place sucks, and that's wrong. Because heaven, the kingdom of God, nirvana, paradise, whatever you want to call it, it's already here right now. It's a state of being. It's a reality. And all you need to do is tune into it. This is Streams of Light Podcast. Chris Anthony, thanking all my guests today, Vanessa, Brian. Until next time, take care of yourself.